my first night in the county jail after I got convicted, it ended up getting into this all-out brawl with this dude that was about as big as I am because he wanted to steal my shoes. Because I came into the county jail with a better pair of shoes than he did.
Hey guys, it's Donnie here, and I just want to let you know that we've recently launched a content development company, and this company helps people get social content. You know you need to put out a lot of content nowadays to get engagement out there in all your social platforms. Well, we've come up with a really cool way to help you get videos, blog posts, memes, social posters, and infographics for whatever social site you need. So check us out at successchamps.us and learn more about how you can get social content for your social media.
Support for this podcast comes from Point Blank Safety Services and Blue Family Fund. Point Blank Safety Services does safety differently. We know everyone is on a journey, and we want to make sure you get where you're going safely. Professional, trained, ready. There's really no comparison. Here's why hiring Point Blank Safety for your next project will make all the difference and save you huge amounts of stress and hassle. Point Blank Safety Services provides certified, uniformed police officers for a full suite of armed guard services. Don't leave the safety of your project to chance. If you're ready to make sure safety truly comes first for your next project, then visit us at pointblanksafety.com.
You're listening to Donnie's Success Champions, where I believe everybody is on a journey. Life is all about the stories you can tell and teach later. You're going to hear the stories of people who have overcome hardships, failures in life to find success along their journey. I am bringing on a new buddy of mine, Julio, and dude, this guy's got a story. He's got a story of going through it and being snacked up against it and keep pushing forward. So stand by. This is going to be a good one about the military life, his time in prison, and what he's done since he got out. Enjoy this one, guys. All right, guys, going to be another fun show today. I'm bringing on a new friend of mine, Julio. You know those guys that spell their names funky with a J that sounds like a damn owl. So, Julio, welcome to the show, brother. Glad to have you, man. Please, come on and tell us your story.
Hey, Donnie, how's it going? Thanks, first of all, for having me on. It's fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
So let's start off by let me tell you what I am, what I do. All right. Like you said, my name is Julio. It's actually Julio Briones, and I am.
Thank you for saying your last name, by the way. I wasn't even going to try. It's as bad as my last name, so.
That's why I didn't try yours either.
Yeah. Well, it's Boivin, so now we're even.
Boivin. Oh yeah.
Not even.
All right, would have never gotten that. All right. So, I am a personal crisis manager. Okay, so now what that means is when a person goes to a life coach, for example, okay, and they're trying to get their life in order, this life coach will gently take their hand, put the pieces of their life together, making this beautiful picture. I'm the guy you call in when your life fell apart and you need somebody to come in with some duct tape and a sledgehammer, all right?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not there for the pretty stuff. I'm not there for, because you can't figure out what your next career move is going to be. I come in when people are they've been arrested. They got a loved one that's been arrested. Somebody's going through a nasty divorce. They got addiction issues. And all of this extra collateral damage that gets involved with all of this stuff. I come in, I put a plan in place, I tell you, shut up, sit down, and let's get things done.
I gotta ask, third grade, when, my third grade teacher was Miss Smiley, which is like the best third grade teacher's name of all time.
Definitely a winner.
Yeah, dude. So I can guarantee if you were in Miss Smiley's class and she looked at you and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? That crisis management was not going to be the thing you said you were going to be and do.
Well, absolutely not. Let me tell you, even up until 2000 and 2007, this was the furthest thing from my mind. Because let's be realistic. Who sits there and says, I want to dedicate my life to helping people put their lives together after they've completely just screwed it up? I mean, when your life is foobarred, who wants to sit there and fix it? So
obviously you.
Well, now. So how did I get into this illustrious career? Well, it started actually way back in the late 90s when I was in the Army. We came back from a deployment from Kuwait, and a couple of really good buddies of mine were going through some stuff when we came home. One particular person that this guy, he's like my brother. I have as much love for this man as I do for my own brother. We went to his house so I could pick up my car because I was single at the time and he was married. And we walked in on his wife with someone else.
Mm.
I physically had to pick him up and drag him out of the home because I think if I didn't, he would have killed them both.
Right.
Yeah, it's terrible, but it's the realities of being a soldier that's been deployed. So I helped him get through that, helped him go through all the divorce stuff. They had kids. We were in Colorado. They were from Washington State. So you got to learn to deal with all of this stuff of moving kids between states and visitation and just really a lot of stuff that happens all at once. So we got through that. And even at that point, I wasn't thinking of doing this as a career. I was just really trying to help my brother
out. Yeah.
So you fast forward a few years. I get out of the Army. I open up a clothing store. At the time, I was dating this girl that was probably the worst person in the world I could have dated. So
I think we all have got those stories.
Yeah, but mine ends worse than most. So I get into an argument with her one night, and I call up a mutual friend. He shows up with some people I've never known before. 2 weeks later, I'm handcuffed. I'm sitting in the Bergen County Jail. I've been charged with, robbery, carjacking, just a whole lot of bad. 7 counts total. And, I now have to figure out what happens with the rest of my life. Almost 2 years later, I find myself having made every mistake conceivable in the court process, including hiring the worst lawyer known to me, 85% before I can see parole. And if everything just possibly went wrong, it would have been a 44-year sentence. So
let me ask, did you do all those things?
No. I'm going to clarify that.
Yeah.
You will never hear me say, and nobody has ever heard the words, I'm innocent, come out of my mouth. Okay? I was there. I should have stopped it. I had a gun that wasn't registered. Having been in the Army, I had a bunch of guns, just happened to have one that wasn't registered. Great. Fantastic. Punish me for what I did. Now, throughout the course, it came out. The people that got robbed, they went to my trial. They said I didn't rob them. Okay, that I'm not the guy that picked up a gun. And, long story short, without going through a year and a half worth of trial, during one of my appeals, the prosecutor even says in open court that their office was aware from day one that at no point I ever picked up a gun and actually robbed anybody. Now, does that mean I'm innocent? No, it doesn't. It just means I'm not as guilty as they made me out to be. Ultimately, the courts agreed with me. I learned enough of the law to get them to present my argument the right way, and I ended up doing 10 years out of the 44. So the courts agreed I was not as guilty, and they agreed with me also because, again, I've never said I'm innocent, and that's not something – I'm not one of these people trying to make some bleeding heart story that, I was wrongfully convicted. No, I think I was wrongfully charged. I think I was excessively charged, but not wrongfully convicted. Big distinction.
But on the outside looking in, your dumbass got into a spot you shouldn't have been in the first place.
No,
right?
And I agree with that. Look, I've taken full responsibility for what I've done and for what my decisions are. That's actually one of the big things I preach to my clients. Like, listen, nothing's ever going to get better if you don't man up and take responsibility for what you did.
Absolutely true.
You did it, great, move on. It's not about what you did and living in the past. It's about admitting, taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your life, and let's move forward. Great. So this was my answer. Once the judge told me I'm going to be out in a few years, my whole life changed. I compare it to telling a person that they're going to die from cancer in 3 months, and 6 months later, they're still alive and kicking. Like, you've prepared yourself mentally to have your life end, and now you're moving on. What's next? So I started planning. I started thinking, well, I'm not the most religious of people, but I firmly believe in God. Okay. That's very important to why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I believe God blessed me with a second chance at my life. And I went from not seeing parole till I was going to be 71 to now being out of prison, a free man, by the time I'm 37. That's fantastic. That is a huge opportunity. And that is something that not a lot of people will get in this world. And I had to figure out now, how am I going to move my life forward and give something back while still be able to support my family? And that's where I came up with personal crisis management. I took all the mistakes that I made throughout my own legal process, all the experience that I had before helping guys through divorce when I was in the Army. I took the experience I had working in home care industry and planning, and as a small business consultant before all of this happened, and having run my own small business, I got myself a bunch of certifications. You know, I'm a life coach and small business coach, business analyst, things like that. And I put it all together, and here we are. I have actually written 2 books. One is called Redefining Success, in which I actually take somebody step by step through what it takes to change your mindset, change your life. And I don't just say, okay, think about this. I actually tell you, write down 3 goals every day. If you didn't accomplish them, hold yourself accountable. Why aren't you doing this stuff? And it's all working towards these goals, these mindset and everything else. And I have a new book, actually, coincidentally, that the release is on Monday the 29th, called Surviving Arrest, where I hand walk somebody from getting prepared when you see the bad coming down the road, because we all have family members that we know, like, hey, there's a high likelihood that something bad is coming. You know, and let's be frank, we all know what we do. People think all the time, oh, well, that'll never happen to me. Reality is, according to Department of Justice statistics, there is a 1 in 28 chance of anyone getting arrested at any given moment in the United States. 1 in 28. That's not, the odds are really not in our favor.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now, why is that? Why is the number so high? Let's think about this. We go to the bar, we have a few drinks with our friends. You know, we have that one too many. We get back in the car, we're driving home, and there's a DUI checkpoint. You're going to jail. That's it. There's no way around it. And that's the most common arrest in the country. That's the most common arrest for a woman in the country, believe it or not.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So the criminal, that's not me. You know,
yeah.
But if you got the soccer mom having a play date, and then she has a couple of glasses of wine with her friends while she's hanging out, you know, and the kids are playing in the yard, you get back in the car. Think about this. You're driving 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of deadly weapon, and you're intoxicated. You're going to jail. How do you prepare for that? What is the stuff that you should know that will help you get ready for the arrest process? Like, how do you get prepared so that when they do arrest soccer mom, let's say, and she's got a truckload of kids and they're dragging her off to jail, you need to have things in place. Who's going to pick up those kids? The state will come and get them if they can't get a hold of somebody fast
hold on.
enough.
And I get that, but here's a problem with that scenario.
Yeah.
Soccer mom doesn't know she's going to get arrested. She doesn't even believe that's a thing that can happen.
Exactly.
So she's not going to be prepared or read a book or do a Google search on what happens if I get arrested. She's now sitting in the county jail, freaking out, running every scenario through your head. Am I supposed to, blow? Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do that? What am I not supposed to do? What am I supposed to remember? Your stuff comes into play after the fact in that scenario. Yeah.
In that scenario, sometimes. See, the thing is, a lot of what I do is hold community workshops, and like people hire me to come in and do this stuff. Let's do a workshop at the facility, or let's do something with the township. I work with a lot of different townships, with different agencies or organizations, and I come in and do this and talk about this stuff because it's a reality. I'm trying to spread the word about this, and this is why I come on shows like yours and everything else, because the reality is, according to a conversation I had with somebody on Dun & Bradstreet a few months ago, I actually have the most unique set of services in North America. So that's fantastic. But on the same note, it makes it really hard for people to know what the hell I do,
Well, I can see people actually almost wanting to avoid you.
Some do.
Well, and only because, that'll never happen to me, so why would I need to hear?
Of course.
Right.
But
we all do stupid stuff. I mean, if you've been in the military and you weren't arrested for something, well done.
Then you were just better at running. You were faster than the cops. That's
right.
Yeah.
And it's always usually from some stupid things.
Right.
So with your services and stuff, I mean, you're getting to deal with some real characters. You're getting to deal with just people that screwed up, and are really great people. What are you actually trying to do? Rehab is not the right word, but you're getting them educated and trying to get them pointed in the right direction? Is that really what you're trying to pull off?
No, I'm not trying to rehabilitate anyone, because at the end of the day, we are all adults. And if somebody is...
I don't agree with that. Well, I think we may... A lot of people... Yeah, legally you have...
Legally, we're all adults.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm good with that.
All right. No. The fact is, there's a lot of grown children in this world that just don't know how to manage their own lives. But as far as from a legal standpoint, we're all adults. And the fact is this. If you're doing something that I don't like or I don't agree with, and I sit there and I try to badger you or tell you or find any creative way to get you to change what you want to do, you're never going to change. You're not going to change until you decide, hey, this is not working for me anymore, and I want to change. So that's not my intent. My intent is to get you through this. That's it. With as few bumps and bruises as possible. So if somebody does get arrested, that's actually usually the point when people start looking for me.
Right.
Like, oh no, little Jimmy got arrested. What do we do? Okay, great. Let's go and deal with Jimmy. We're going to have to analyze what Jimmy got arrested for. Let's see if bail's even an option. Let's get you out the door. Let's, if you don't have an attorney, let's find you one. Let's get all of these plans in place, and let's start working towards getting Jimmy through this alive. Because if Jimmy's doing a 1-year bid in the county jail, let me tell you, the reality is county jail is a lot more dangerous than state prison. 100%, hands down. When you're dealing with the county jail people, you got people kicking drugs. You have people going through, detoxing. You have people that are so messed up in the head. You got a lot of gang members getting picked up, coming in and out. You don't know what's going on.
And I don't know firsthand, but they say county's a lot worse than state.
Oh, it's much. I'll tell you a real life experience here. I went back to one of my court hearings. They left me in the county jail for 3 days. Now, as you can see, I'm not a small man. I am 6'1". At the time, I was actually about 225, and I used to bench 400 pounds. All right, my max bench at this point in my life was actually 465. All right, I'm just a big man. When I first was arrested, I had gotten into a fight with one of the corrections officers before I posted bail. So one of the way their payback was, because I was put in the same housing unit, was to hold me in the county even after my court hearing, kind of as a punishment, because everybody knows that county's worse.
Right.
In those 3 days, you run into these guys that, these young idiot gangbangers that they pick up for drugs and pettiness. And the first thing, they have this mentality, a lot of them, well, let's find the biggest guy and let's try to do something. All right. So this is the reality. In prison, I was perfectly safe. In the county jail, I had to actually defend myself. Hey, my first night in the county jail after I got convicted, it ended up getting into this all-out brawl with this dude that was about as big as I am because he wanted to steal my shoes. Because I came into the county jail with a better pair of shoes than he did. So
guys, for the record, if you ever get if you get arrested, make sure you have crappy shoes on.
Yes, make sure you have crappy shoes and make sure you know how to fight.
Right.
And I thank Uncle Sam every day for basic training.
Right. Well, it was Army basic training, so.
So, I mean, things like that people have to consider. And, the thing that a lot of people, like, there's a few things that people don't understand about the whole process, and nobody ever thinks about this. Again, going back to county jail sucks, it's dangerous. Prison can be very dangerous and volatile, too, if you don't understand how to move around and how to live in there. So there is a likelihood that if you screw up bad enough, you could die. Little known fact, if you can get a life insurance policy out on yourself before you're convicted, and as long as you're paying the premium, it's really hard for them to cancel the policy on you. All right. So, because it's a condition that occurred after you established the contract. Now, once you're convicted, the circumstances change and they'll deny you all day. But these are things to think about, and it's a horrible thing to think about. But if you got kids, if you have a wife or a husband, and you have somebody that you need to take care of, what if you die in jail? Let's be realistic. A life insurance policy goes a long way. And it's a combination of things. Like, one of the things I had to deal with when I was in there was my father ended up getting brain tumors that were cancerous. So we had to figure out all of the home care stuff, all of the hospital stuff. What's hospice care? What do we need? How do we get somebody to take care of him? And these are all things that, again, no one really considers while you're going through it. And these are the things that I bring to the table. I understand exactly what it is.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Is I had the privilege of going in and speaking into a women's prison in my hometown, and one of the ladies I talked to, she got busted for embezzlement, so it was high society crime or white collar crime. That's what it's called.
Right.
And as I was talking to her, she was 8 years into a 12-year sentence. And
right.
I said, what's the biggest struggle of being in here? She goes, it's not really the being in here that's a struggle. It's on all the things that are going on the outside that I can do nothing about. Her son was 16 years old, going through some tough times. Her mom was sick, and they were having to deal with all that. That she said was 10 times tougher than actually being incarcerated.
And it's true. I mean, after all of this stuff, when I first got arrested, I met this other wonderful woman who today is my wife. She actually rode through all of this with me. And, we have kids now, but she had a daughter that it's hard sitting there understanding and like, hey, I have a bond, a relationship with these people, and all of this is going on. And there's nothing I can do. And again, it's one of those services that you are 100% right. A lot of times people hear about what I do and they laugh. Oh yeah, I'll never need you. And I'm going to tell you, about 25% of the time I get a phone call from those same people. Right? Like, oh my God, I didn't realize that this was going to happen. Like, oh, this is what I try to tell people. So it's a lot more than. It's not a prison consultant. A prison consultant will just tell you, hey, don't drop the soap and, don't rat. Great. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but this is what they do.
Right.
So, and if it's a federal prison consultant, they'll help you figure out paperwork along the way, too. The reason I didn't want to take on a title like that is because what I want to do is a lot more than that. And what I actually do for my clients is a lot deeper than that. I really try to prepare them. I give them a plan that most of them, I'm going to say probably about 30-40% actually will follow. Again, all adults, and I can't make you do it.
Right.
I start teaching them how to prepare for the time they get out before they even go in. Going off a little bit on a tangent here, that's one of the biggest things I see as an issue with the prison system in this country to begin with. Back in the 70s and early 80s, because I've known people that have been in prison that long, there were a lot of vocational programs. You went in, you learned carpentry, you were forced to work. You didn't just get to sit in the cell all day. You were forced to work. The conditions weren't always pleasant because you had to earn your keep. And as time went on, the prison system in the nation as a whole, like there's some jurisdictions that still do it where they try to teach somebody, but there's no preparation to get out. 80% of the people sitting in state prisons are barely literate. 40% are totally illiterate. Okay, that's a phenomenal number. And you have programs like in New Jersey, they pass laws where if you want to get paroled, you have to take the GED or at least go through the class. But here's the problem: 5-year wait list for that. So if you're doing a 3-year sentence and you're on a 5-year wait list, how are you going to get your GED? Now, who's going to sit there and take the time for you to read? And then you have a population that sits there and goes, well, you know what? I don't really care. I'm just going to go back out and sell drugs anyway. And I'll just sit in my cell and ride out my whole time and walk out without even parole. And that's dumb. I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is. So my theory is, and this is something because I actually sit on a Labor Department committee for prisoner reentry here in the state of New Jersey. And we've worked with a sheriff in one of the counties, and we're starting to see kind of like this idea that I've put together, how it's playing out. You come in, they put you in a vocational program. In this particular one, they're teaching them landscaping. So that's a vocation. That is something that you can actually go and earn a good living on if you develop a talent for it. In the process, when they're coming close to their release time, they're being interviewed and considered for entry into a union. So they can actually continue learning the trade and earning a living. It has reduced recidivism from drug sales by almost 60%. Because I don't have to sell drugs if you show me another way I could feed my family.
Right. Right.
And this is where I think all this talk about prison reform, all this, again, if it upsets anyone, that's your problem.
Who cares?
Mine.
Yep.
All this talk about, the system is racial, that there's all these obstacles, mass incarceration, systematic racism, it's all nonsense. Okay? Because I'm going to tell you, when you're standing in front of the judge, what separates the sentence that your average Spanish black person is going to get versus your average white or Asian person is going to get is the desire to show remorse. I learned that the hard way. I took the systematic approach to what we were taught as kids and everywhere and watching TV. You get in front of the judge, you man up, you did what you did, you don't show any emotion, and they give you a sentence. What that got me was 39 years. The guy who came in after me with the exact same charges, ended up getting 15 years because when he got up there and he was going to get sentenced, he broke down crying, he apologized to the court, to the family, to the victims, and he was a black guy. But he figured out, hey, I need to show remorse. I need to really show the judge that I know I screwed up. And yeah, I'm taking my responsibility, but I need you to see that I'm really sorry about what I did, not just sorry that I got caught.
Well, that's interesting to me because in my head, that just seems like common sense. But I can see why it's not. Based on movies and everything else, is I'm the badass, right?
Yes, because that's what it is. When you are black or Spanish, or whatever the politically correct nonsense term is for all of this today, all right? But when you are what is considered a societal minority, and you are in urban areas, that is all that's thrown at you day and night. You're the tough guy. Hey, you were bad enough to go to jail, be man enough to take responsibility. You don't show emotion. Emotion is weakness. The guy who cries is the guy who gets ass raped in prison. Oh, excuse my language.
No, you're good. I cuss on here all the time. You're fine.
Oh, okay. But this is what is taught, and this is what people go in there thinking. So in suburban neighborhoods where the majority of the population tends to be white or Asian of some sort, now in those neighborhoods, the opposite is taught. You're taught that if you did something, you show true remorse. If you have to fight to defend yourself, great, but it doesn't make you less of a man to show that emotion. And this is where the disconnect is. Because I've seen white guys that have been from neighborhoods like where I grew up, okay, in more urban settings, come in with that same mentality. Because, again, it's not, I don't believe it's a white, black, Spanish, Asian, I don't care what it is. It's not a racial thing. I think it's a societal thing. In the subculture of urban areas, you will have a different mindset than in the subcultures raised in the suburbs. So that mindset is, I'm a tough guy, I've done this, I need to not show remorse, not show emotion. Now my sentence is going to be double or triple what the next guy that comes in, and this is why there's outrage. Oh, it's because it's systematic racism. No. Let's fix the problem in the urban areas. You know what? Let's reduce that 70% single motherhood in urban areas. Let's reduce that down a little bit. Hey, fellas, if you're making babies, why not stay home to raise them?
Right.
What a concept.
Well,
and actually take responsibility for our family. Let's get married.
Well, just to add in there 2 seconds, I'm just thinking that in any situation, that's great advice, because, if I walked up to, let's just put it into corporate America.
Yeah.
If you're in corporate America and you're an idiot showing no emotion, having an ego, a chip on your shoulder, your ass is fired. It is.
You have a very short-lived career.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So, but if you take it to life, if you walk up on a situation and chaos is ensued, a fight's broken out or something, you're going to get one or two characters that come out of that situation when authority runs up. You're going to get the one that goes, hey, I was just defending myself, and then you get the other guy going, yeah, but you're a punk-ass bitch, right? The guy who's saying, but yeah, you're a punk-ass bitch, he's the first one in handcuffs.
100%.
Right?
And the same thing happens in prison. Okay?
Yeah.
The same thing happens in everything else. Look, and the thing is, we're in court again, and it's one of those things that's a little controversial. I get a lot of slack for it, but it's all really part of what I learned. I'm going to tell you, I used to be a staunch Democrat, really be all about the whole liberal agenda before I went to prison. When I started hearing about all of this stuff and how people react while I was in prison, let me tell you, it even changed my political affiliation. That's how crazy it got for me, because I just kept hearing about this victim mindset. It's not me. It's because the white man puts a foot on my neck. It's not me. It's because the government. It's not me. Well, you know what? How about you're an adult? Take a little responsibility for your actions and your choices. You may not be able to control what the government does. You may not be able to control what that Klansman 3,000 miles away that you'll never meet does. But you can control what you're doing. You can control how you're reacting to things. Hey, maybe if you got a job instead of selling drugs, you can support that child so that that woman that gave you that child won't have to treat the government as a husband. Maybe you could be the husband and the provider and the father and create a solid family unit and keep that next generation out of jail. Move that next generation up. Hey, maybe you don't need that $300 pair of Jordans and your kid needs a box of Pampers. Let's think about this stuff.
Well, what's interesting to me is I get a lot of people, being a veteran, asking me about how do we get the veterans, get them to get better jobs, and, what does the corporate America got to do to get these guys employed? I'm like, it's not on corporate America.
No, it's on the veteran.
It's on the veteran, right? 100%. I'm like, dude, suck it up, Buttercup, and go get a damn job.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, look, which branch did you serve in, by the way?
The only one that matters. I mean, the Marine Corps.
Oh. We won't get into that, but let's take pride out of it a little bit, and just in general, as veterans, when we were serving, Army, Marine Corps, I'll even count the Air Force in this. But any branch of the military, Air Force, Coast Guard, I don't care what branch you served. One of the biggest things that we're taught was, yes, you depend on your unit, but you also have to be self-reliant.
Yeah.
Because when it all comes down to it, you only have one individual to depend on, and that's you. If you and I are in the foxhole, they shoot you, you're dead. I have to survive.
Right.
Okay? And that is one thing. I don't want to bash on millennials, but it's one thing I think that a lot of people in general, younger people in that 35 and under range, have forgotten. It's not taught. I think that the big mistake of giving everyone a prize when they were a little kid took away that accountability, that individuality that we need in order to prosper. And again, this is the bulk of my message. This is the bulk of what I work with. I turn down more clients than I accept because it's one of those things. If you're expecting to just everything be a cakewalk, that's not what I'm about. I'm not going to sit here and hold your hand. I'm going to do stuff for you because you're my client, but I'm going to talk to you with reality. I'm not going to sit here, and pat you on the head and go, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Look, I promise nobody's going to hurt you in prison. No, because there's a reality that you might get hurt in prison.
Right. One
of the most tragic things I've seen. And honestly, it's something that still, all these years after getting out, I've been out since 2012. I was in community release, and then I was completely released in 2014. Like, just nothing, no more custody for me. And all these years later, I still wake up thinking about this in the middle of the night. This young man, he was a white Spanish kid. His mom was white. His dad was Puerto Rican. And when he went into prison, somebody told him that it would be a good idea to join a gang. Of all gangs, he joins the Bloods. Yes, a militant black gang. And this guy's about your complexion, okay? So he had to show extra about how tough he was because, now you're the orange in the box of apples, okay? So time goes on. He had gone in for a 3-year sentence, and it ended up turning into almost 7 years. I met this kid when he had less than a year left. He sat down to play cards with his homies, and somebody spilled by accident a cup of coffee on him. And in prison, that's considered as disrespect. Okay. So the guy didn't react. He was like, look, it's all right. He just cleaned himself up. Even was nice enough to help a guy clean up the rest of the mess so that, the guards don't say anything to him for spilling the coffee. So later that day, his homies that were there made a big deal out of it because he's the white guy in a black gang. They went to discipline him. They beat him to death that night. Ugh. With 3 weeks left to go home. So I hear all the time, well, I'm only going in for a short amount of time. I don't need help. Well, no, you do. You need to understand the intricacies of what prison life is. And one of the big things that, again, because things are not, one thing that was great in the 80s and 90s, okay, and I'm just taking a stab at it that you and I are not too far apart in age.
No, I guarantee we're not.
All right. So one of the great things about the 80s and 90s was when stuff happened, you actually saw the news. It wasn't a bunch of fluff pieces about some cat being kidnapped in, Afghanistan or something. It's like reality happened. There was a shootout down the street, you saw it on TV. There was a prison riot, you saw it on TV. They didn't sugarcoat things, and they didn't have a political agenda as much as they do now. And I think that taking that reality out of the news has softened people's minds a little bit. And so now you do have a bunch of people going into jail thinking, oh, well, it's going to be fine. No, it's an inherently dangerous place. Just like divorce is inherently expensive, just like senior care is inherently complicated. And no two situations are exactly the same. And these are the things that, again, just overall, we're missing out. Life is not fun and games all the time. Life isn't always fair. And this is to bring me back to the beginning point that I made. Your life coach will hold your hand. I'm the guy that comes in with the duct tape and the sledgehammer because your life is screwed up and we just need to put you back together.
Well, and what I like about that especially your analogy, is coaching doesn't work with tender gloves.
No.
Nobody is going to make a shift if you coddle them.
Yes, I agree.
My favorite coach I ever had told me to pull my head out of my ass on regular occasions.
Yeah, that's actually a common statement I use.
Well, but it comes down to is you're getting in your own damn way by, in your case, my case, acting in a certain particular way that is not benefiting you or moving your life forward. You know?
Exactly.
So what a wild damn ride, brother, to get out of the Army, make some dumb decisions, find yourself incarcerated, but not as bad as it could have been. So for me, I believe everybody's got a story, right? We're all on this journey, and part of that journey is to go out and learn life and come back and teach what you learn. And dude, I got to give you props. You're doing just that. You're teaching and giving back the knowledge you learned along the way. And I think that's how the good people in this world get around the right way. You know?
Right.
So.
One of my favorite, I don't want to call him favorite, but he was one of the best sergeants I ever had when I was in the Army. He was a real hard ass. Nobody liked him. But one day when we were actually out in the field, we were out in Kuwait, and we were sitting there. It was late at night. I was on perimeter guard, and he just, out of nowhere, he decided to come out and have a chat with me. And this man, why I find him so great is because he didn't mince words. Okay? So what he essentially taught me throughout that time was no matter what life throws at you, you just keep going. And you have to lead by example. So I took that to heart. I mean, there's two conversations in my life that have changed my entire perspective. That was one of them. That this guy really drove home because he asked me, he's like, look, does everyone in the unit follow what I do? I'm like, yeah. They don't like me. Like, no, I'll be honest, nobody likes you. He's like, but everyone respects me because I am exactly what I say I'm about. I don't tell you I'm going to do something and do something different. That was the first conversation as a young adult that really molded the way that I think today. And the second major conversation was this older Spanish guy that I met in prison. I was really distraught. I was actually considering suicide at the time because, I mean, think about it, all those years. And I decided to just start going to the law library to try to learn the law, to figure it out I didn't even know what I was doing at that point. And this guy, after talking for a while, he sat there and he just asked me a very simple question. He's like, you're trying to figure out what to do. I see you're going through stuff, but before you get desperate, before you do something dumb, think about this. Ask yourself this one question. Are you trying to prove that you're right, or are you just trying to go home? And that's it. So if you're just trying to go home, deal with the circumstances you have now, fix that, and worry about the rest of it. You know what's right and wrong. Who cares what everybody else thinks, as long as you can get yourself into a position where you're moving forward in life. And those two conversations mold who I am today and what I do. I've been out of prison a very short amount of time. I'm married. I've held a corporate job. A job that I only have a high school diploma, by the way. Okay. There's a reason for me mentioning that. I came out of prison, got myself a job as a driver for a company, like an in-house taxi. All right. And I worked my way up in that company in a very short amount of time to be senior national trainer for sales and operations for a franchise home care company that I actually wrote their entire training manual and created this because they had enough faith in me and in my ability to do things that they let me try it and they gave me an opportunity. And it wasn't because they needed to meet some racial quota, and it wasn't because of, no. It's because I walked in, I accepted whatever I could get, and I showed by example what I'm capable of. I decided it's not about me proving whether I'm right or wrong. When I tell them I'm a lot more than you think, I showed them. And this is important. As we speak, I'm in the process of buying a house. Technically, 5 years done with a prison sentence. I said, married, had a good job, have my own company, have my kids with me because I have, my daughter, my stepdaughter, but I've raised her since she was little. So my daughter, she's 20, she's in college, and I've led by example, and she has a 3.8 GPA in a private university that she didn't get in there through affirmative action. She got in there because she kept a 4.0 GPA in high school and on a partial scholarship. Okay? Because she saw, because I've always told her, the day you see me give up is the day you're allowed to give up. And that's it. And these are the values and the core beliefs that I built my company on, that I teach to my clients, and that I feel as a nation a lot of people are missing, and why we're not progressing the way we should.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome, man. What a powerful damn story. One key point I wanted to point out in there, and I learned this from my buddy Dom, who was on the show, Dominic Boyles, and it's the power of yes. And I think a lot of guys that are transitioning out of the military, maybe transitioning out of prison, it's that ability to say yes to the opportunities in front of you. Most people get this high and mighty thought process that the world owes them something, and that they can't go get dirty. I can tell you, similar to your story starting off as a driver, Dom started off in a trash sluice, down this dirty, nasty pit, and he worked himself up to huge guy inside of corporate America. That same thing. And it's the power just continually saying yes. Yes, exactly. I'll do that. Yes, I'll take that on. So that's awesome.
Fear needs to come out of the equation.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not going to lie. There's times that I'm doing stuff and I am terrified and I'm convinced I'm going to fail, but I keep doing it. You just keep moving. Fantastic quote I heard a long time ago. I'm probably saying it wrong, but bravery is not the absence of fear. It's continuing forward in spite of the fear.
Yes.
And, and again, these are just the things that I live on. This is how I deal with everything.
Dude, that's awesome. Man, I got to tell you, it's really been an honor having you come on here and share your story, dude. This is a powerful one. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I love your perspective on things, and I think if more people would embrace your thought process of how we fix some of these problems, life would get easier.
If people started taking accountability, I can tell you, probably about 80% of the problems in this country would be fixed within a generation.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, well, brother, here's how I like to wrap up my show, and I do stump some people on this, so get ready for it. If you were going to give my audience one quote, phrase, slogan, saying, mantra, something they could carry with them on their journey, especially during those times when they're stacked up against it and going through it, what would be that quote or phrase you would say, hey, just remember this?
Oh, wow, that is a great one.
Yeah.
That is a great one. All right. But it's not impossible for me. I will tell your audience, and the same thing, I start off most of my initial sessions with my own clients. All right. If you're here, the victim mentality is a crutch. Let go of the crutches.
That's huge. That's huge. You should get that put on T-shirts and sell those damn things. but it's the absolute truth. Man, Julio, thanks, brother, for so much for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story.
All right. I really appreciate you having me on, Don. I think this has been a fantastic interview. Great experience.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Donnie Success Champions podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our current guest today, or if you'd like to hear stories from our other guests on the show, come hang out with us on our website at successchampspodcast.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you need to reach out to me for any reason, you can catch me at Donnie@DonnieBoivin.com.